Angus Taylor, thanks so much for having us and congratulations on becoming Liberal leader. I just want to start firstly by asking, why did Susan Lee have to go?
Well, the party is in its worst position that it's been in since it was founded in 1944. And that meant there needed to be a reset, there needed to be change. We need to restore the confidence of our voters and supporters and anyone who might vote for us in us, and restoring confidence meant a reset, and I think that was the right call. Clearly the party room took the view that it was the right decision, and now we have the hard work to do, which is to convince Australians that the Liberal Party believes in what they believe in and can deliver to them what they need. They want to see a protection of their way of life. They feel as though their way of life is under threat, and they want to see restoration of their standard of living, which has been smashed under a bad Labor government.
One of your allies, James Patterson, said during the week that the Liberal Party has lost over 2 million votes since the May election. Another pretty damning stat is compared to when Scott Morrison won his miracle election win in 2019, if you believe the polls now, support for the coalition is more than halved. And that's gone to Labor, that's going to One Nation. Why has that happened?
Well, I think there's a perception that we've moved to the politics of convenience, not the politics of conviction. We've lost touch with our core values, which have worked for Australians in the past. The things that we believe in, the strong economy, protecting our way of life, an energy system that's affordable, ownership of a home as a critical part of the Australian journey, immigration that's acting in the interests of all Australians. I mean, these are the things that Australians want to see, and we have moved away from those things, and it's time to move back to them sharply.
One of the things you spoke about yesterday, you spoke directly to disappointed former coalition supporters. Obviously, over the last 8 or 9 months, a lot of those people have shifted over to One Nation's column. I would say there aren't just disappointed former coalition voters, there are really frustrated ones, and I think some are actually really angry too. And that doesn't just go to the last little while, that goes back to the coalition's 10 years in government. What's your plan to take on One Nation?
Well, we've got to restore Australians' confidence in us. That's the most important thing. So it starts with us focusing on the Australian people, putting Australians first in everything we do. And I think voters will then see that there is a Liberal Party that stands for the things that meant that they've been able to support them in the past. That's what we've got to do. It's not a matter of focusing on One Nation, it's a matter of focusing on Australians. That's why I do think it's so crucial now. We have an immigration policy that reflects our values, that says if you don't accept the core beliefs and values of Australia, the door should be shut. You shouldn't be coming to this country. This is what I think Australians want to see from a strong Liberal Party, and we need to demonstrate to them that we can be a strong Liberal Party.
I'll come to immigration in a minute, but I want to ask one more question about One Nation. I detect in conversations with senior Liberals a degree of complacency about One Nation's rise. There is a view among some that the political marriage between Pauline Hanson and Barnaby Joyce is destined for divorce. Some will say, you know, they've been up in the polls before, they're going to fall back down. How seriously are you taking the rise of One Nation? And do you think what I've outlined just there is wishful thinking?
Well, I think the thing I take seriously is the fact that voters have been moving away from the Liberal Party. And some of that's been to Labor. In recent times, a significant part of that has been to One Nation. And that's because, as I say, I think we've become unmoored from our values. I don't think any other party, One Nation, Labor, or any other minor party, can offer what we have traditionally been able to offer, which is a strong economy that lets Australians get ahead, where we put a focus on home ownership as a critical part of the Australian ideal, the Australian journey, that we have immigration policy that is acting in the interests of Australians. And these things really matter, making sure we've got an energy policy that is about affordability first, and is not about Labor's net zero ideology. I mean, this is what the Liberal Party is at its best at. We are economically strong when we get back to our roots. And we are also strong on making sure we protect the great things about this great country, and we celebrate the strength of a wonderful nation.
Getting back to your roots on the economy, before the last election, you acknowledged this yesterday, the coalition decided to vote against tax cuts on the eve of that campaign. Now that turned out to be calamitous for the coalition. That was the wrong call. Whose call was that, and how much responsibility do you take as Shadow Treasurer at the time for that decision?
Well, I disagreed on that decision, and I said that some time back. I think we need to be the party of low taxes, and I don't want to go into the ins and outs of, other than to say, I mean, in the lead up to an election campaign, obviously the leader is the one who makes the calls, and that's as it tends to be increasingly in our system. But I think what matters now is that we focus on being the party of lower taxes. Labor is planning clearly to impose taxes on homes. If you want more homes, to get homes to be more affordable, you don't impose a tax on it. If you impose a tax on something, you get less of it. I mean, it's pretty simple economics, this, and yet Labor is going down this path. This is absolute insanity. We need to fight it hard.
So, Angus Taylor, under your leadership of the Liberal Party, will the Liberal Party always stand against proposed tax rises?
We always must be the party of lower taxes, and that includes personal income taxes.
Going back to the last election campaign and over the last 9 months, what have you learned personally from the coalition's position and from your own experience?
That we've got to get back to what we are, what we're good at, and what's made us successful in the past in a modern context. The modern context is people are losing hope for owning a home. Young Australians, like my kids, 4 kids, and their generation is giving up hope that they're ever going to own a home. This is disastrous for Australia. We absolutely have to get back to those core beliefs, those core values that have been so successful for the Liberal Party, but most importantly, have been so successful for our great nation.
Even your staunchest critics would acknowledge that you have a policy brain, you have a wealth of experience in the business world outside of Parliament. What they would say about you, though, is that you don't have the mongrel to tear down a Prime Minister. Have you got the ticker and the drive to take the fight to Anthony Albanese every day?
I am determined by nature. I always have been. I'm not a career politician like some others, and lots of commentary always comes from people who have been in politics a long, long time, and we need people who understand politics.
So those critics are wrong, is what
what I'm saying is, I've always been incredibly determined in everything I've done all my career. And I am determined to fight for Australia, to bring down a rotten government, a bad Prime Minister that is not acting in the interest of Australians. And I see Australians every day incredibly disappointed with the Liberal Party because we haven't taken the fight up to this rotten government. Well, that's what I'm going to be doing every single day.
One of those critics is former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. Now, just minutes after you clinched the top job yesterday, he went on the ABC and said, a lot of people say about Angus Taylor, he is the best qualified idiot they've ever met. What's your response to that?
One of the things about politics is we get a lot of free advice, and some of that comes from former Prime Ministers. I don't agree with him, obviously. But that free advice I'm sure will keep coming, but it won't distract me from my job. And my job is to focus on the interests of Australians who are disappointed with where this country is going, who do believe that this government is not protecting their way of life, who believe that this government, they believe rightly, this government has overseen a collapse in their standard of living, and they want better, and they think they deserve better, and they're right.
I want to move to immigration, and this was one of the key themes of your press conference with Jane Hume yesterday. You spoke about shutting the door to people who hate the way of life here in Australia. What does that mean in practice?
Well, it means if you don't believe in our core values, then you shouldn't be coming to this country. If you want to bring the hate and violence from another part of the world to our great country, then the door should be shut. it's simple. I think Australians understand this. And what are the values that are central to our success as a country? We believe in democracy. We believe that everyone has to obey the law and be equal before the law. We believe in our basic freedoms, our freedom of speech and freedom of religion. If you don't believe in those things, there's other places in the world you can live, but you're not coming here. It's very, very simple. And I think Australians really strongly believe this because we have seen in recent times, we've seen the incredible tragedy at Bondi. We've seen Labor allowing people to come into the country where there are serious questions about whether they do accept our core values. I think Australians want better and they deserve better.
The Coalition's been working on a revamped immigration policy now for a few months. That work has been led by John O'Doniam and Paul Scarr. Are you looking at releasing that platform in the coming weeks, or now that you've become leader, are you going to personally inject yourself into that policy development process?
Well, of course I'll be involved in immigration. This is one of the key areas we've got to get right. The numbers have been too high, the standards have been too low, and we haven't been clear that people who don't accept our values should not be coming to this country. And so I'll be working very closely with my colleagues. Obviously, we'll announce a shadow ministry in the coming days, but I'll be working very closely with my colleagues to make sure that we are putting out immigration policies to reflect those principles I've just described.
So you're gonna lead this work?
Well, no, I'll work with colleagues, but of course I'm going to play a role. I mean, this is enormously important that a leader work closely with colleagues on such an important area of policy. This is one of the areas we've got to get right. Australians expect that of us, and we will.
We've published multiple polls in the Daily Telegraph which have shown majority plus support for some kind of pause on migration, whether that's on a particular type of migration. And what's clear is that voters themselves are tying high immigration levels to issues like housing and infrastructure. Would you consider some kind of pause on some type of migration? Is that on the table?
Well, it's very clear that the numbers have been way too high and the standards have been too low, as I said. And the result of that is it's put pressure on infrastructure, on services, on housing. And the combination of that extra demand for housing and the disastrous supply problems that we've seen under Labor, where it's hard to get approvals, the cost of all the building materials have gone up, the cost of finance has gone up, the interest rates are going up. You combine all of those things together and we've got a catastrophe when it comes to home ownership, and young Australians are giving up. So we've got to get that back into balance. It's as simple as that. Look, we'll put out more on our immigration policy in the future. It's a high priority for us, and as I said earlier, I'll be very involved with that. But it's clear the numbers are too high, the standards too low.
And are all measures on the table?
Well, I mean, obviously we're looking at anything that's going to get this back to where it needs to be, because it's not where it needs to be right now. Australians understand that, and your surveys clearly indicate that.
One of the issues that's been raised after the tragedy at Bondi, of course, has been if it's in the government's power to do something about Islamic extremism in this country. Are deportations of radical hate preachers, does the government need more powers to get cracking with that?
Well, can I say up front that Islamist extremists do not accept our core values. They don't accept democracy, they don't accept the rule of law, and they don't accept our basic freedoms. And I think that's very clear, and that's why they shouldn't be coming to this country. If they're not citizens, then they shouldn't be staying. And if they are citizens, of course there should be appropriate measures taken against any incitement to violence or clear indication that these people are going to cause harm to Australians. So I think that's straightforward. We've got to work within the Constitution that we have, but what I can say is Islamist extremism needs to be called out for what it is. It is completely and utterly un-Australian.
Do you think it's the greatest threat to our way of life in this country?
It's clearly a very big threat, and we've seen that. There's no doubt about that. I don't think it's the only one. I think there are others as well, but it is clearly a big threat, and we have taken it seriously from time to, well, certainly previous Liberal governments have taken it very, very seriously. We've gone to wars, we've seen the Twin Tower, but we haven't seen this level of tragedy in Australia So I think it is absolutely incumbent on everyone involved in politics, parliamentarians and officials, to do absolutely everything we can to rid Australia of that kind of extremism, which is completely unacceptable.
Another issue you touched on yesterday was housing. You're talking about reviving the Australian dream of home ownership, particularly for young people. Again, in terms of concrete steps, this is a big problem.
Yep.
Where do you start?
Well, more houses is a good start. And I'm about to go out and talk to some local builders here about exactly that. It has got too expensive to build a house. It has got too hard to build houses. There are too many blocks and restrictions on being able to get more houses built, and as a result they become absolutely unaffordable. It's also become too expensive to finance housing, to get a mortgage. We're seeing interest rates going up again. I mean, Australians thought that interest rates were moving down and they were going to stay down. Well, no, not under this Treasurer. Let me tell you, this Treasurer has lost control of the economy. Inflation is surging, interest rates are surging. We need to address these issues, and we need to address them fast, or that dream of home ownership will be gone for so many young Australians. And I think that is truly tragic.
What is very clear is the government is soft launching changes to the capital gains tax discount. There is talk that this will apply just to investment in property. Will you commit to fighting tooth and nail against any changes to CGT?
Yes, and let me be clear why. If you tax something more, you get less. If you tax homes more, you'll get less homes. It's not complicated. But in some weird calculus of this unhinged Treasurer and hopeless Prime Minister, they think this is some way to solve the housing crisis. That's just insanity. It's just insanity. But this is clearly where they're going, because ideologically it's what they believe in. And sadly, when Labor gets its ideological blinkers on, whether it's on housing or energy or other things, they do things that are not in the interests of Australians. And I think the other thing I would say about it is, when Labor governments run out of their money, they come after yours. And the cost of that in this case will be housing supply, and we need more houses.
The other point you made yesterday, which raised a few eyebrows, I think, was what you said about childcare and family policy. And your critique of the government's point of view on this, that it's one size fits all and it's universal. Can you talk us through what is your philosophy on government's role in helping families? What should family policy look like? What would family policy look like under a Taylor government? And can we expect a concrete offering from the Coalition on childcare in the coming months?
Yeah, of course you can, but let me describe the principles here. Families are looking for more flexibility, not less. We've got across the country, most families now, a very high proportion, are double income, two working parents, and that makes life incredibly challenging. They're having to do that to pay the mortgage, to pay the bills, and so an inflexible, uniform childcare system that doesn't recognise the different needs of different families, I think, is a big problem for families. It's also unaffordable, that's very clear, and that the combination of inflexibility and unaffordability is a huge challenge for families. We have to make it more flexible.
So how do you do that?
Well, by giving more choices. And as I say, we'll have more to say about this, but we do need more choice for families, more flexibility for families, not less.
Onto some political questions, Angus Taylor. You spoke yesterday about the Liberal Party facing a change or die moment. Now, change obviously can apply to questions of policy, but it also applies to questions of personnel. You told me last year that the likes of Jacinta Price and Sarah Henderson and Jess Collins should be in bigger roles. Of course, your colleague and leadership rival Andrew Hasty has also been away from the centre of things under Susan Lee's leadership. Are you going to get all of those people as part of your shadow ministry? And are there others that you are looking to elevate to ensure that the Coalition's putting its best team on the field?
Well, can I say we have to put our best team on the field. That's the most important point. I'm a big believer in the power of merit. That's a Liberal Party principle, and I think we can deliver best for Australians, hold the government to account if we have the best people on the field. I'm not going to announce my shadow ministry today, Charles, but what I will say is I'll be looking to deploy people in areas where they want to and can make a contribution. My career has been about helping people to do that, and that is exactly what I'm going to seek to do.
Before you defeated Susan Lee in this leadership spill, there was a couple of weeks of speculation that members of the right, Conservatives and the Liberal Party, were deciding between backing you or backing Andrew Hasty. That was obviously a sort of shadow leadership bout and was quite willing at times. What's your relationship with Andrew Hasty like now, and can you work closely with him as leader?
Yeah, good relationship, absolutely can work with him. We talk all the time. He is a wonderful and respected colleague who's made a great contribution to this nation and will continue to make a great contribution to this nation, and he must. We will only succeed in climbing this mountain, which is what we're up against here, in getting Australia back to where it needs to be, protecting our way of life, restoring our standard of living, if, as I said before, our best players are on the field, and he's one of our best players.
So he'll be a very senior part of your team?
Well, no announcements today, Charles, but he is obviously a strong player who needs to be on the field, going hard against an opposition that is playing a bad game for Australia.
Leadership style, you've spoken before about servant leadership. You obviously are a mentee of John Howard's, a colleague of Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull and Scott Morrison. Who do you look at as the gold standard as a leader that you are seeking to emulate? And what sort of leader do you want to be?
Yeah, as I've told you before, I'm a huge believer in servant leadership. The job of a leader is to serve. It's not to have others serving them, it's to serve others. And first and foremost, we need to serve Australians who are disappointed. And that has to be the culture of our team. In terms of mentors, there's many who I look at, and ideals, there's many I look at. And I think we can learn from all sorts of leaders. I have to say, one of the most powerful models of leadership for me in my life was my own grandfather, who led the construction of the Snowy scheme, people coming in from all over the world. And the message he always sent was, if you adopt what Australia is about, we are going to help you to succeed, to fulfil your dreams, and to make a great life in this great country. And they did incredible things together. And that kind of that belief in our nation and that kind of servant leadership that I think he demonstrated is the sort of servant leadership I want to demonstrate in this role.
Last question, Angus Taylor. Opinion polls suggest that there's a really big chunk of the Australian public that don't know too much about you yet. So over the coming weeks, you'll be looking to sort of introduce yourself to the electorate. What are the three things that you want Australians to know that you're about?
Well, the first is that I'll stand for them. Servant leadership is about standing for others, and I will be standing for them every single day. I came into politics later than most. I wasn't a sort of a young career politician, and I came into it because I believe in this country, and I'm going to fight for this country because it's worth fighting for. That's the first. The second is I am incredibly determined and always have been. I've throughout my career and my life done hard things. Some things, when you do lots of hard things, some things go great, some things not so much, but throughout, you've got to be determined.
Up for the fight.
Up for the fight, 100%. Well, I think that was my third one, which is I'm up for the fight.
I stole your third one. I stole your thunder.
It's a big fight, and it's not just a fight with the Labor Party. It's a fight for our country. I mean, we are seeing our country, as we understand it, and certainly as I understand it, moving away from us. Our way of life is under threat. We are losing home ownership. We are losing this focus on our core values. The belief in the strength and wonderful characteristics of our nation is slipping away from us at the moment. And our standard of living, which we've always understood would be moving ahead for us, because that's how Australia is, has gone backwards. And that's worth fighting for, and I'll be fighting for it every day.
Angus Taylor, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Charles.